Hi, let's now understand the concept of namespace. So, namespace in C++ is a region that provides scope to identifiers. Now, identifiers are nothing but variables. They are types, they are functions that you can define in your program. So, what namespace would do is it will help you to define a scope for them. So, you can imagine that you have a program file, and in this program file, if you would like to create a region, let's say I can show you a region like this, and in a region what you can do is with the help of a namespace keyword you can define a logical block. So I can say namespace my space a, and I've created a logical block. Okay, so namespace is a keyword here. My space a, I can say it's the name of a namespace that I have defined, and there's an opening and a closing curly brackets. So this is a logical region that I have created, and in this logical region what I can do is I can declare variables, types, functions, whatever. So I can declare a variable a in this namespace. So right now I have declared a variable a in this namespace. I can also create one more namespace. I can have one more namespace in my program. You can have a number of namespaces in your code. So I can create one more namespace as my space b, and I can create a variable by name b. So I have got two groups, two logical groups in my code, or I can say two scopes in my code. This is a scope by name MySpace A, and this is a scope by name MySpace B. And as I said that what we can do is in this scopes we can define variables, types, functions, and this whatever you have defined in the scopes, later on we can use all this in your program. So let me show you with a programming example. So I have opened Visual Studio, and in Visual Studio I have got an example project, and in that I have an example.cpp, and what I can do is I can define a namespace as my space a. This is one namespace that I have defined. I can define one more namespace as namespace MySpace B, and this is one more namespace that I have defined. So now this is one logical group created, and this is the other logical group created, and this is the name of the first scope, and this is the name of the other scope. And we have used a keyword namespace to declare a namespace. So namespace is a keyword. MySpace A is one scope that has been defined, and MySpace B is the other scope that we have defined. Now this is the starting and the ending block of the namespace. We can also nest the namespace. We can have a namespace inside a namespace. So even that is possible to have. Now what we can do out here is in a namespace you can declare a variable, and I'm doing what is I'm declaring a variable a in a namespace with a value 10 right now. And likewise what I'll do is here I'll have one more namespace in the other namespace b. I'll have a variable b with value 20. So right now we have two scopes, and this scope has variable a and this scope has variable b. And we'll be declaring a function, defining a function main, and in main we'll try to use value of a and value of b. So if I directly write, let's assume that I have a variable sum, and in variable sum I would like to add value of a with value of b. So if I try to do that, you can see the Visual Studio editor is showing me an error saying that a is undefined. So it's not able to identify where a is. Okay. So what we can do out here is there are two ways of telling that okay, that a should be taken from this group. So one way of telling that is using keywords. I can say using namespace, and I can give the namespace name as MySpace A. And when I write this statement, I'm trying to tell that the a here should be taken from this scope, or I'm trying to tell here is that the compiler should search a in MySpace A scope. And likewise, if I want to use MySpace B, I can also write using namespace MySpace B. Well, right now what I have is I have MySpace A, MySpace B, and A is taken from MySpace A and B is taken from MySpace B. One more way of writing it is, if I don't want to write this statement, what I can do is I can also write using something called as a scope resolution operator. So I can write my space A and I can write colon colon. Now this colon colon here, which I have used, this is called as scope resolution operator. Now scope resolution operator is used at many places in C++. This is one place where you can use scope resolution operator. When you want to resolve the scope of A, where you are trying to tell that A should be taken from a scope MySpace A, and likewise you can also say that B should be taken from scope MySpace B. So I can say that A comes from scope MySpace A and B comes from scope MySpace B. Now what if I have one more variable, let's say a C variable, and in this case a C variable is a global variable, and if I want to add C also, I can directly write C, and by default what happens is that it is going to look in a global scope. Now C doesn't belong to scope A or scope B, the C is in a global scope, so I can also write colon colon C. So if I am directly writing colon colon C without any name before the scope resolution operator, so here I'm trying to tell that look for C in a global scope, and right now C is in a global scope. And if I want to print, I can say cout sum and return 0. Now you can see that the compiler is throwing an error saying that okay, cout is not defined. So cout is basically defined in a header file called as iostream, and again in iostream there is a namespace by name std, and inside an std namespace cout has been defined. So if I want to use cout in my code, I can write here using namespace std. So std is a standard namespace. So std, it's a standard namespace defined in iostream. Okay, and if I don't want to write the statement, I can remove this line and I can directly write here std colon colon cout. Let's try to run the program. So I'll put a breakpoint on line number 22 and let's run this code. So I'll build the code and we'll execute the code. So I'll run this and we should get the output as, you can see the output as 60, which is correct. So this was a simple example to understand the concept of namespace.